Welcome to the Asbury Park Zoning Board of Adjustment regular meeting, October 25th, 2022. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press by publication of the annual meeting notice and posted on the municipal bulletin board and municipal website. All notices are on file with the board's secretary. Official action may be taken on the following matters before this board. Fire exits are located on the east and west sides of the council chambers as well as the back of the building, and I ask everyone to please mute their cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Please call us to order, Marie.
Would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance first, or no?
We don't do that.
That's good to know. I will now take roll call. Daniel Harris.
Here.
Jill Potter.
Here.
Tim Slick.
Here.
Wendy Glassman.
Here.
John Scully absent. Chris Avalone.
Here?
Russell Lewis absent. I believe that's everyone.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we just have a couple of housekeeping issues first before I call the application up. First, I'll make a motion to carry the Breakwater Treatment and Wellness Corporation 807 Memorial Drive, 906 First Avenue to December 13th, 2022 with notice.
I'll second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I got you.
I'm tired.
And, sorry, one second. So for the motion to carry 807 Memorial Drive, Daniel Harris.
Yes.
Jill Potter.
Yes.
Tim Slick.
Tim is recused.
Recused. That is good to know. I will add that as a note here. Okay, Wendy Glassman.
Yes.
John Scully. Absent. Chairman.
Yes.
And Russell Lewis is absent.
Okay, so one final issue to take a look at, the Zoning Board of Adjustment calendar dates for next year. Has everyone had a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we will officially vote on those in January, but as long as everyone has taken a look, do we need to take a vote tonight as well, Jeff? Or because this is strictly for the calendar.
Strictly for the calendar. It was discussion point.
Yeah, it's just for discussion, so we
Right.
don't have to take a vote tonight.
Okay. So we'll start with the application. 412 2nd Avenue, Ms. Joyner and Mr. Spadaccini, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
If you could give us a recap of where we were at and
I will.
what we're asking for,
That would be-
I would appreciate it because it's been quite a long time.
It's been a long time, and I hope we concur on what we're asking for, but I think we do. So, as you may recall, the property is 412 2nd Avenue, Block 3302, Lot 3, R1 Single Family District. The board has retained jurisdiction, I believe, Mr. Beekman, correct? We did not need to renotice.
That's correct.
So we are here this evening. We started in July, on July 12th. We didn't get very far. There were some issues that the board had. We've been working through those. And so we're back this evening. Let me tell you a little bit about the property briefly. It's about a 7,500 square foot property, has an existing 2.5-story home on it. And the proposal is a second floor balcony replacing a bay, a typical bay on these types of homes. So that's the proposal. And the reason we're here is because we need relief from the community design standard is what we need, because we're not replacing like for like. We're putting in a balcony, proposing to put in a balcony, as opposed to putting in or replacing it with a bay. So we need relief from section 30:64(3), the community design regulation standard. We may need a front yard setback variance We don't believe so. We believe we've met that setback by lot averaging. We've submitted documentation to that effect, and we're happy to talk about that in as much or as little detail. We certainly don't want to waste your time, but we're happy to talk about how we did it and all that.
I think we're going to require it,
That's fine, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we definitely need
That's
to
okay.
discuss the
That's
variance.
fine. So.
because we have to determine whether it's a variance or not, Mr. Spadaccini.
That's fine, not a problem. So with that said, the first thing that I'd like to talk about is, I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to read the planner's report that was submitted. It was originally submitted June 8th, it was revised October 20th, 22. Have you all had a chance to go through that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so before we get into the micros of the application, we submitted in September with something that was very similar to the proposed sketch that is in the planner's report. We then revised it and went back to our original sketch, making it smaller. I want to make it clear, we have no preference. If the board is inclined to approve the community design standards, we are happy to do whatever the board perceives to be better, likes better, etc. We're not married to any one of the designs. So with that, I think it's appropriate to start with the macro discussion of what the board likes or doesn't like. It will not create any new variances, it will not do any of that. So everything would stay the same. It wouldn't change the front yard setback. It would not do a thing. It's truly a question of design.
You're going to have to swear.
Swearing on professionals?
Please.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You do.
Yes.
Donna Miller, board planner.
Doug Clellan, board engineer.
So I think that's an appropriate starting point. I don't want to go all the way through on testimony with one as opposed to the other without getting a sense of the board's preference. Again, this is not a hard variance that we're seeking. Perhaps it is, but we don't think so. We think we can meet the...
I'm still somewhat confused of what's being asked of the board.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so.
I think if we could get clarification what variances are being specifically asked for, and whether it includes a design exceptions as well. So perhaps if we could review that.
Yeah, maybe I can ask a couple questions and hopefully help here. So let's talk about the porch itself.
Yes.
We're going to need you to provide testimony relative to whether the porch is a setback variance or not.
Happy to do that.
All right, but then we also have your proposed balcony off the second floor.
Correct.
What's not clear even to me is I'm not really sure exactly what's the scope of the balcony, what's the width of the balcony, what's the depth of the balcony.
We're going to talk about, we're happy to talk about all those.
You know, we can talk a little bit more about specific designs, but I think the board needs to know
And
more
we're
about
not
the
here
details.
to talk about design with you. That's something that your architects do. We don't give you the design, Mr. Spadaccini. Understand that. That's not about what we do here. You present your designs to us and we decide what variances you need, or if we allow it to be done in the first place. So I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, I have an alternate proposal in a memo that was provided by your professionals. So obviously this is here for a reason, that perhaps it's a better design, a better alternative, and we don't have issue with that. We take no issue with that. So we're happy to discuss that. We can certainly start with the variances that, the front yard variance is the only one that we would need. And we don't think we need that. We think we can talk about and provide testimony with regard to the lot averaging. And we're happy to do that if that's where you'd like us to start. But we are here for, if you were to
I
take...
think we have to begin there to even know if we go further.
Okay, because...
No?
and-
Yes.
It makes sense.
So
but-
you'd like to start with the front yard setback is what you'd like to do. Happy to do that.
Can I ask a
Go ahead.
prefatory question? And maybe my memory's wrong, but I thought that when we finished the meeting on this, the first time, that you had specifically, there were some issues about how the demolition and construction had proceeded, and you had specific questions about the timing of the demolition, the filing for permits, the not getting permits, and there were all these issues that I thought that you had said the first thing that you had wanted answered was the timeline.
And that is true, Wendy. We have opted to, let's say, not pursue that avenue right
Okay.
now.
And we did provide a timeline in our September 9th, exhaustive, so, and I think that's the reason for it, correct, Mr. Chairman?
You provided a timeline.
Okay, okay.
But in any case, we're not going to pursue that avenue at this time.
Okay.
We're going to talk about what's required for these variances. We want to move forward with this application
Okay, great.
for you and Ms. Joyner and the board.
So you'd like to start with the testimony on whether front yard setback? Fine, we're happy to do that.
I want to know how you came up with your numbers in the first place.
Absolutely.
Because I believe everything after that, it falls in line.
I hope so, and we'll be happy to do that if you'd like us to do that. So we'll start with that. So I'm going to call my first witness, and my first witness is going to be Mr. Michael Granger, if I could. Please. Wait, come on up. I believe he was sworn in last time, I'm sure you want to.
Yeah, we'll have to swear him in.
Please swear him in again.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Granger, you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And if you could just spell your name for the record, please?
Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, G-R-A-I-N-G-E-R.
And Jeff is also one of our witnesses, but he's going to work the computer for us and put things up.
I understand.
If that's
Thank you.
okay. So the first thing I'd like to put up, Jeff, if we could, is basically an affidavit, a letter signed by Mr. Granger, and then the attachments that went with it, if you want to pull that up. Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Granger, you're the general contractor on the job, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. One of the, obviously, we did not want to engage a surveyor to do a complete survey of the entire block. So we requested that you go out and do same. So let's start right at the beginning. Obviously, you didn't go out there with a tape measure or anything like that, correct? What type of equipment did you go out and utilize when doing the measurements?
It's a self-leveling grade pole. It's what we use to measure exterior distances between other buildings and in reference scaled lots.
And Jeff, could you just go to this last photo that gives them an idea? Yeah. And is that the instrument that you utilized?
Yes.
Okay. And just tell us how that works. So you're able to,
So it's a combination of two. It's a grading pole that grades anywhere from 0 to 28 feet, and that's an outdoor laser distance measure that's measuring what it's connecting to, and that's also Bluetooth to our laptop that receives all those measurements.
and you did that at every property on that side of the street, correct?
Yes, the entire 400 block.
Okay. So Jeff, if you could go back now to the next photo, because we started at 414. And that way you can identify, what you'll see in the round circle is the point at the home that we took the measurement from as instructed by staff to do so. So Mike, you went out to 414 and
Took a measurement of the closest face wall from the
Okay.
curb line.
and that measurement was,
47 feet, 7 inches for that particular property.
And-
414.
and these are also, Jeff, if you could, I know we're jumping around, and these are all part of the application, so I don't think they need to be made additional exhibits, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, they were all part of the
If
application.
they're part of the application, it's not.
Yeah, correct,
submitted in
okay.
advance.
I just wanted to make sure, that's all.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so
It might be helpful to have the exhibit.
I'm going to put that one. Yeah, no, we're going to put them up as we go along. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but Jeff, could you? Yep. Before I get too far down each of the individual homes, if you can go to. So on this, and then Jeff is going, who did prepare this map, he's going to testify. What basically happened is Mr. Granger went out, and we're going to go through each.
Mr. Radovic, let your witnesses testify.
No, I am, but I just want to tell them what.
I'm asking you to let your witnesses
Okay.
testify.
So, would you like me to swear in Jeff and then?
You have,
No, one
you have Mr.
witness at a
Yeah,
time.
you have Mr. Granger.
Okay.
Let's proceed with his
So
testimony.
let's go back to,
So the measurements you see here are the ones that were taken, that are listed.
and when you took those measurements, you did not prepare this map, correct?
No, they're not.
And you provided the information to Jeff, who did this simply as a rendering. This is not.
Yes, correct.
And simply for illustration purposes, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Jeff, if we can go back to 412, which is the property in question. And that distance there, Mr. Granger, is?
The closest face wall, it's 46 feet, 7 inches.
And that is the,
Second floor overhang.
Okay.
Of the structure.
and next, if we could go to 410. And Mr. Granger, did you take that measurement as
Yeah,
well?
To the closest face wall, that was 47 feet, 3 inches.
Jeff, we could go to 408. Okay. And that distance is?
44 feet, 8 inches.
Is that to the column?
Oh, no, that's circling the house number.
Oh,
and then
at the top,
yeah,
okay.
Closest face wall to the curb line.
Okay.
Next, 406.
Yep.
Let him pull it up.
That was matching, 44 feet, 8 inches.
Same thing, circling the house number and what you measured the distance at, correct? Next, 404.
That's 45 feet, 0 inches.
Same thing again, correct?
Yeah, second floor face wall.
402
It's 44 foot, 1 inch.
and 400 is the last one.
And it's also matching 44 feet, 1 inch.
And Mike, let me ask you this. How many times did you go out and do this?
Twice.
Okay, and just out of an abundance of caution, correct? Because we were obviously very concerned.
Yep.
That was accurate. I have no further questions of this witness with regard to that, but I'm sure the board does.
I have a couple questions.
Please.
So, when you were doing this, that pole that you referenced, where was that pole?
At the curb line.
Always at the same location, or you moved it?
It follows the curb line of the street that was in the schematic.
So the pole's in front of each house?
Yeah, it's a tripod that levels, and
Okay.
it can extend up to 28 feet.
Okay. And how do you know that the curb is consistent with the setback? The depth from the curb to the actual front yard line?
Right.
How do you know?
That's not what we measured. Because we would need a surveyor to do every.
And permission.
I understand that, but how then do you jump to the step that, you know, the ordinance talks about a setback to the front property line? How can you jump from the curb line to the house and have that accurately identify that it's an accurate distance?
You have to know the distance of the right-of-way from the curb,
Right.
yes.
But all you would have to do is subtract that from each of these. I mean, the curb line is the curb
But
line.
is it consistent?
The curb, does it meander is the question?
No,
or-
is the distance from the curb to every front yard line on this block consistent?
That's not the part that matters. It's the curb line to the right-of-way line. Has to be
That's what I'm talking about, the
consistent.
front yard, the front yard line.
Okay,
The front yard line is what the setback's measured from,
yes.
right? The front, what the definition is, I think it's front.
It's more precise to say the right-of-way line because the front
Well,
yard
yes,
line
it's
is
the same,
the.
it's
yeah,
the same
yeah.
thing. The right of way line and the front yard line is the same exact thing.
Front yard line could be the part of the house. Since the front yard is
Well,
parallel.
Okay, so
But yeah.
we'll use right of way line, that's fine. Are you sure that the right of way line is consistent in that entire block?
I'm not, and help me understand this. If the measurement is the same from a curb line that is consistent, and you're getting a depth of a home,
Not necessarily.
No,
Not
not necessarily.
if the description for the property is closer to the curb on one property as opposed to another property, which happens quite often, you can't take the jump that the distance from the curb line to the house is the same as subtracting the right-of-way from the curb to get the distance for the setback.
But isn't the goal to get the average distance of all the homes?
Not from the curb. That's not the ordinance.
But you would require an applicant to go and have each property surveyed then? I mean, is that?
No, I have engineers do this or surveyors do this all the time for us. They survey, they do a similar analysis, but the analysis is from the point of the front yard setback line or the right-of-way line where it's the same line we're talking about.
But you would need to have each property surveyed to do that.
Absolutely.
But that's the request that you're going to make of a homeowner to actually go, and that's why.
Absolutely, it's done all the time.
So
you have to have legitimate testimony to determine what this setback is.
How do we know what the variance is?
Because we're giving you a starting point, and the starting point is the curb. That's your starting point. So each property.
Did you read the ordinance, Mr. Spataccini?
I did read the ordinance, and we also consulted with staff before doing this. We did not just go out and do this on our own. I can assure you of that. So the alternative is that we would have to go in. You're asking the property owner to go and get each property surveyed.
I am not asking the property owner to do anything. The ordinance requires certain things.
No, it doesn't.
No?
It absolutely does not.
It
I mean,
requires-
I understand the board's concern about the information they're giving you in order to base this decision. It's valid. In this block, the right-of-way for the tax map is uniform width. It's not like the 100 block where there's that taper, right? You know, we have the angle parking and it's wider at the east end and narrower at the west end. The second 100 block, that doesn't happen. It is a uniform width. That doesn't mean that the curb line follows parallel to the other curb or the center line. There's a high degree of probability that it is, but I can't say that it absolutely is. You would need the surveyor to prove that. We did direct the applicant to go out and say, look, if you're not going to hire a surveyor, this is the next best thing. You have to take a measurement from a fixed point. The curb line is a fixed point. The curb line is fairly straight, so it's a fairly uniform place to take a measurement from. The thing that's variable is the location of the houses. We gave them very, very direct information about where on the house it mattered to take the measurement. It has to be the closest point, but it has to be the house. Not the trim, not the bits, not the gutters. It's got to be the flat part of the house. And some of these houses, you know, again, the second floor is a little closer than the first floor. The third floor is a little closer than and so that's what they did. And we reminded them that you better make sure you're absolutely positively certain in the method used, because it has to be inscrutable. You guys have to be confident that the method they used to take those measurements was bulletproof. So the only variable that we can't prove without a surveyor is, what is the width of the right-of-way in front of each property? If we assume the right-of-way is a uniform width from the center line to the curb, then we can do simple math to determine what that setback is. And that's what I used in my report to assume that it's about 19 and a half feet as the average.
I assumed it was about 20.
Yeah. Which even when you look at it in the aerial, you kind of get that feeling. So it seems to be bearing out. But is that an absolute? No. You would need a surveyor to go out, find the right-of-way limit in front of each property that is closest to whichever closest point of each house and take a measurement. Because again, so I was going to, on cross, ask, you know, for example, on this house, you've got the right-hand corner. Did you also measure the left-hand corner? Is the left-hand corner closer or farther away? Is the center really the average of that frontage?
Or the upstairs?
Yeah, I've looked at a bunch of these from all angles.
Just from this picture,
Yeah,
not to critique,
some of the
but
facades, you know, the upper floors look like they're sticking out a little bit more, but they're, when you look in profile, they're not, they're in line.
right, just as photo,
Yeah.
that's all I meant.
So I understand Mr. Beekman's point about the rigidity and absoluteness, but we do not have a strict formula in the ordinance as to how to do this. And I confess, I did it. I told them, look, if you're not gonna hire a surveyor, this is the next closest way to find this information, but you have to be completely I's dotted, T's crossed, you know.
How are
Pi
we?
squared.
So you're
It's
saying we
gotta
should
be
make an
measured-
assumption, Donna?
Measured the same way for every single one, exactly.
And then did you check the tax map? Did you say that?
Yeah.
For the
That's how I
consistency of the
verify.
right of way?
If this had been an angled street, I don't think we would have even recommended it, because we wouldn't have been able to find it. The other good thing, we had the application across the street, $1,000 Valerio. We have detailed site plans from that application that tell me the distance of the right of way, the depth of the right of way. It's almost literally across the street from this property. So I had reference materials to give me confidence that it's uniform with right of way and the distance between the curb line and the right of way is the same as what's happening on the other side of the street. But that's me.
So,
Again, I'm not a surveyor, I'm not even an engineer.
So,
Mr. Beekman, how do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that if, you know, the board has to weigh the credibility
Right.
at the end of the day.
You're saying
it's not
we
our
need to
job
make a
give
leap
you
of
the-
faith though, basically, Donna, that, right? I mean, like, that they did the measurements correctly and there was.
Exactly, and like I said,
so
on cross, I have a lot of questions about, you know, the preciseness and the accuracy, and did you take the average of the front or just the closest front? And then
Multiple
that
points.
helps the board get a comfort level.
But they are not surveyors, right?
No.
No.
So we have to take a leap of faith in this decision, right? You're telling us, well, base it on their testimony. And base it on your.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing though, he's under oath, it's not a leap of faith.
It's not a leap of
No.
faith. And
The methodology is the methodology. I'm not critiquing the methodology. What
I am.
my crit-
I am.
Okay.
What
I'm
my
critiquing
critique-
the methodology.
And that's fine. My critique more so is how can you be sure that the front yard line, which is the same boundary line as the right-of-way line, because as you remember, the right-of-way is not the curb line. The right-of-way
I understand.
is probably 15 or so feet from the curb on
But
this
we're
property.
still making assumptions.
Is it 25?
It's
on this one?
it's just
Okay.
like 25 and a half feet. yeah.
So, you know, you're either making an assumption or alternatively, you can grant a variance. They're here, the application, the notice requests the variance.
Well,
So
that's
if
why
you're
I was
not
asking,
comfortable-
I was asking,
Yeah.
what are the variances, right?
Yeah.
What
Well,
are the
And that's
variances?
certainly one of the variances is the front yard setback because it's not 25 feet. That's clear. I think everyone knows the front yard of this house is not at 25 feet.
Right.
So your alternative, if the board's not comfortable saying, yes, we agree that the lot average or the average prevailing setback average is acceptable,
Right.
then your other alternative is to grant the variance.
Okay, let's move on.
we're finished with Mr. Granger's portion of the testimony. We can certainly have.
No.
You may be finished, but we're not.
No, I know, well, that's why. But I mean, you're looking at me. I didn't think you were, Mr. Chairman, so feel free.
Does anybody on the board have further questions for Mr. Granger?
To Donna's point, the measurements or the circles where you say the beam
Yeah.
shown. Did you do other points on
Yeah,
each house?
it's not the only point. Where I'm actually circling is physically the closest portion.
But then, to her point, did you do other points and have those measurements?
Correct.
That's
That
available
was
to us,
That was
so
our
that-
second round, which is I was able to gain my own average from our first one to our second one.
the same spot?
It checks my numbers back from our first go around.
But in the same spot, did you measure, or different points on the house?
No, on multiple points of that house. A lot of the third floor gable overhangs that you see weren't measured to, is because a lot of those aren't actual living condition spaces. Some of them are actually attics. So we're taking all the measurements specifically from the first or second floor closest face walls.
Is that a consideration, Donna, that they're not livable spaces?
No, but there are elements on the upper floor of that structure that would be permitted encroachments.
Right.
And so it's fine if he doesn't want to count them, helps us, or doesn't help
I
his
did that
case.
in your
Yeah.
favor, not ours, actually.
So, and again, what we're looking for is the closest point, so I'm glad that he is saying that. He did, test multiple points on the facade and has given us the closest point.
Some foundations are not square. And where is circled on each photo is actually the closest point from our referenced curb line.
Anyone else for Mr. Granger? Board professionals?
One quick
Yeah,
follow-up.
go ahead.
So when you say you selected several locations, or more than one location, you move the pole each time too?
Yeah, it's a live reading. So that device actually connects to our laptop, and it's the same methodology we use to point in foundation works all the way to third floor structures. So if we
creates
add
a 90-degree angles, or
it's self-leveling. So
Okay.
where I'm at the curb, it's not just bowing. It's how we're marking ground floor to a third or fourth floor structure, whether it's new construction or an addition. That's how we take our measurements from ground point foundation into a basement, all the way to a third floor attic. So it's very, very cut and dry.
Is there a level on the grade pole to make sure it's straight up and down?
Yeah, it's actually on a tripod that self-levels. It's not a cheap device.
And Mr. Granger, what is it? It's in your affidavit, but why don't you just state it for the record, what the...
Yeah, the laser distance measure is a Bluetooth outdoor laser distance measure. It's basically a digital tape measure.
And the manufacturer is?
It's a Bosch. It's also attached to the Bosch aluminum grade pole that's on a self-leveling tripod. It's all as a kit.
Okay. Any further questions? Anyone in the audience would like to question Mr. Granger on his testimony? Thank you, Mr. Granger. You can call your next witness, Mr. Spadaccini.
Thank you. Jeff, why don't you come on up? Jeff, why don't you state your name for the record, and I'm sure they'll want to swear you in.
Jeffrey Stocklose.
Stocklose.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could just spell your name for the record, please.
Last name Stoklos.
Thank you.
And Jeff, if you can pull up that aerial. So this is simply for illustration purposes so that the board, can get a sense. And what you did here, you took the numbers provided by Mr. Granger and overlaid them onto a map, correct?
Correct.
And I think it's pretty clear, I mean, and you tell me, but aside from the distances, the homes the setbacks are fairly close in proximity, correct? There's not a huge deviation here based on the numbers that you were provided?
Correct.
That is part of the application package, and I'm sure the board has questions. But again, Mr. Stoklos simply took the information that he was provided and put them on there for illustration purposes.
I don't have any questions.
And nor do I.
I have nothing further this witness with regard to the setback, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So I believe you stated at the beginning of the meeting that you wanted to talk about what variances we needed initially before proceeding.
So we're going to do pull across,
Oh, I'm sorry, yep.
just so long as they're.
Yeah, no, of course.
Does anybody else have any questions?
All right, I'll
Board
just-
professionals?
So, I'm sorry, so you're, I saw your letter, senior designer. just tell us a little, so you're a
Sure.
draftsperson?
Yeah, so I'm the senior
experience?
designer at Fluent Design Group. I've been there close to 8 years. I've been doing architecture for about 25 years now. And I work with the engineers and builders to produce additions, renovations, new houses.
Are you an architect?
No, I'm not an architect.
But you prepared the exhibit by transposing information from Mr. Granger onto an aerial photograph that's referenced in the document?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I obtained the tax map, which is on the first page of our submittal, and the street is very straight, and the Google image represents that the curb line is pretty straight, and I used the
What are your credentials, sir?
Just what I was able to superimpose graphically over top of this image.
No. What
So
are
his
your?
experience is basically a draftsman.
Okay.
He designs and drafts and creates exhibits and the plans.
Okay.
Under the direction of someone else usually.
And if I may, you're currently enrolled in an architectural program, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, I'm finishing up my architectural degree at Drexel University.
And how far along are you with that?
I'm in my 7th year, so I have 7 months left.
Okay, congratulations, Steve.
Cool.
Okay, great. I have no further questions.
So,
So if the public has any questions,
Anyone in the public have any questions for this gentleman's testimony?
just so we've got the process.
No, I appreciate it, Donna, thank you.
so, Mr. Chairman, a short while ago, you said you wanted to go through the variances. That is the only potential variance that we have before we proceeded on to the design concept, if you will. So I'm not sure how you want us to proceed at this point in time, but we're happy to do whatever you like.
Well, I'm a little confused.
Well, so I think where we're at is the board should decide whether to accept this testimony as to whether the existing building should benefit from a prevailing setback averaging, or the board is going to hold firm with the minimum required setback of 25 feet for any application involving the structure.
Well, without taking a poll of the board, I can't answer that question, Donna, so.
No.
Right.
So I don't know if that's a vote or if that's
I don't know if that's a valid question.
Well, so you have to determine whether the methodology that was used to present it is sufficient to satisfy whether the setback for this property, which is exactly what, Mr. Spacci?
Hang on, let me pull that up. Jeff, do you have that? Hang on. The front yard, hang on, I have it right here. The existing or the proposed?
Well, the existing and proposed are the same.
They're the same, that's right, we're not changing.
Right.
Which is 21.1 feet.
Well, but what they're saying is that the prevailing setback on this side of Second Avenue is 19 and a half feet.
Correct.
And so the board has to, if they're going to accept his diagram and testimony that determines that as being acceptable, I think they should take a vote on that. And if they don't find it acceptable, then the 25-foot minimum front yard setback would be prevailing for the application. So
Correct, that would be what's required for the application.
for anything they're doing to the front of the house, yeah.
So, and to proceed at this point, you're saying we need a vote?
Well, you need to decide at this point how the board views this, whether there is a setback violation on the existing property, or whether it satisfies a shorter prevailing setback.
I have a question. How they did this? Have we approved other properties? Is this something that's done, maybe not here, but across the state? Is it something that's relied upon by other boards? I mean, I know we don't, I just want to know the history.
This was an avenue Donna provided.
Right, I just want to know the history. Is this a valid option?
It is in the ordinance, and I think it's only been used once by the zoning board in the past, that since I've been on. I think before you, can't remember which application it was, but
I certainly haven't been involved with this, and I've been here a long time, Donna.
it wasn't an application that came through. They
So
never
this has
actually
never been
finalized
used
the
before.
application. This would be the first one where it's actually,
So
yeah.
if I may, it is used in other municipalities, and
I can't take
No, no.
hearsay as a.
No, I mean,
No,
other towns
I would
use a
appreciate
similar
hearing
thing.
this.
Yeah,
Honestly, this
so
one's ours.
I mean, you asked a question, so I'm trying to answer it for you. So you haven't been in other municipalities, I have, so I'm just trying to answer the question to provide you with more information. I can tell you, in the Princetons, what they do is, they do use lot averaging, and the municipality generally does that measurement, or if you provide it such as we did, the zoning officer will generally go out and verify that information on their own, and it's generally not a board decision. So you asked, I'm just telling you my experience, Mr. Chairman. This is not adversarial. All we want to do is build rapport.
I'm not being adversarial. I just don't know how to.
I can tell you this, there are some municipalities that they determine the averaging from the curb as opposed to, or from, sometimes there's actually some that have the center line of the street where they determine some of their variance conditions on. So it is a methodology that's used. The question becomes for Asbury Park is, can you rely upon this methodology only for this application? This is different on every lot, and this is different on every block. The question is, can you rely upon this methodology for this block and this lot within the block?
And if I may, I mean, it's certainly, I get the details, the inches, the half inches, the half foot, but the reason that we gave you this illustration is it passes the smell test. It certainly matches the streetscape. It's not like we're coming out an extra 5 or 10 feet, A, and B, we're not going any further out than we were. So if we were able to, if for example, if this board were to deny our community design exceptions that we're asking for tonight, we could go back and build exactly what was there to the exact distance. So I guess the question is, I understand your concern about the methodology. I gotta tell you, I've dealt with a lot of witnesses in my 34-year career. Mr. Granger's pretty darn credible. I mean, he's obviously done this before. So I understand all the board's concerns, but if you take it in its totality, I mean, this kind of says it all. I mean, you're not that far off. And we're on the short side of it. So we're on the short side of where everyone else is. So I just kindly request that you keep that in mind. And again, you know, the board at the beginning of this said, well, we need to make this determination forth before everything goes forward. So we'd just like to get, you know, through this.
Well, I think we're going to need to take a vote and see how the board feels.
Just so we're clear, Mr. Spadaccini, the distance that was measured to this house is what?
So I don't have it from, it is, well, two things.
From the curb.
Okay,
The methodology that was used.
thank you.
The methodology that was used, what's the distance?
It is 46.7. And the prevailing, so that they're consistent, so I'm not giving you apples and
Yeah,
oranges.
I want
And that's why I was stumped when you asked me before, because you were saying from the setback line. It's 45 feet, 5 7/8 inches. I know that's a mouthful. Do you want me to repeat that?
45 feet, 5 7/8 inches. So
we're further back than the average.
a little more than a foot back.
Yeah, a foot and 2 inches,
Than the
so
average.
14 inches.
So if the board assumes that the curb line is the same distance to
It's
the right-of-way line consistently
yeah.
across this whole block, they are 1 foot behind what the average would be
I
in this
understand.
block. 1 foot further.
All right, so
So I think we need to have a vote whether you're going to accept the methodology and the prevailing. And then ultimately what any decision is going to be is
We'll
going to
decide.
indicate
I
what
know.
the setback is
understood.
based on the survey.
Yep.
And if I may, we're not looking to match that average. We're going to be behind it, and we're going to stay where we are. So it's not like we're looking to grab an extra foot and 2 inches. That's not the goal here at all. We're staying exactly where we were.
I appreciate that, Mr.
No,
Spadaccini.
of course.
Thank you.
Nobody else here, Mr. Chairman, just all of us to talk, so we'll keep talking.
So Marie, if you would take a vote to see how the board feels about this methodology to determine.
Does anyone need to?
Well, I think it's,
I think it's going to
it needs to be a motion.
couched, yes.
It needs to be a motion because we're interpreting what the methodology is.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to take a vote to decide whether the methodology used to determine the setback is one that the board can accept.
Well, I think the motion should be an affirmative motion, whether you accept it or whether you do not accept.
Yeah.
Okay. I make a motion to decide such as what you just said. To decide whether the methodology is correct or
I
not.
think he's
What I'm saying
asking
is-
whether or not we're
You need
saying
to make a
yes.
motion either
Yes.
to accept it.
Accept the
To accept the lot average.
methodology or
I'll
not.
make the
To accept
motion
the
to
lot
accept
average.
the methodology to set the prevailing setback.
I'll
Thank
second.
This
That's
application.
fair.
And I'll-
And Tim seconded.
I'll second.
So a vote yes means,
You're in
You
favor
accept
of
the
the prevailing
methodology.
setback and the methodology.
Thank you for clarification.
Go ahead, Marie.
Got it. Daniel Harris,
Yes.
Jill Potter,
Yes.
Tim Slick,
Yes.
Wendy Glassman.
Yes.
John Scully's absent. Chairman,
Yes.
and Russell is absent.
Good, all right.
Okay, past the first hurdle.
There we go.
Feel like I'm on a game show.
So let's just recap here.
Yes, please.
So for this application on this property, the board has accepted that the prevailing setback is 19 and a half feet from Second Avenue right-of-way line. And anything that they're doing on the front of this house should not extend
Past that.
past that.
Past that.
Otherwise, a variance would be required.
With the exception of the porch, Don. The porch is,
Correct, correct.
okay.
The open first floor porch
That's allowed.
is allowed
It's
to
allowed.
operate, as it was, and I presume you're gonna recap some of that testimony.
I don't think we started it, so we're starting
So
over.
put the original porch back on.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'd love to leave it at that, but.
Sure. So that the board can take a break, I'm going to make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Sure.
Second.
Okay.
You say all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
At 7:55, I will call everybody back to order and take roll call. Daniel Harris,
Here.
Jill Potter,
Here.
Tim Slick,
Here?
Wendy Glassman.
Here.
John Scully absent. Chairman,
Here.
and Russell Lewis, Vice Chair, is absent as well. Okay.
Sure, get ready.
Oops.
Ooh, my bad.
We are ready.
So you mean we're done?
Mr. Spedici, just one second.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Marie, you're calling it wrong. You should always call it last. Chairman's always called last. Okay, please proceed, Mr. Spedicini.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're back to the future. Jeff, if you'd be kind enough to put up the sheet that shows what the house looked like. There we go. So that's gone, as you know. You've seen the tieback. It's part of a Google Earth right now since they updated in September. That's what you see from the street view is the tieback.
It's hard to believe that's the same house.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't agree more, and I think we all prefer this than the tieback. So that's gone. That bay, if you will, there, and it's not a bay window. It has a floor. It's part of the interior living space, et cetera. We'd like to convert that to a balcony, and as a result, the community design standards kick in, and for any change, we need to come before the board, and that's why we're here tonight. So what we'd like to talk to you before we proceed is, and this is what I started to allude to before, but I'm glad we got the front yard setback out of the way, so thank you for proceeding in that manner. And I think this is going to be more conversation, and then we'll put on our testimony, if you will, and get into the details. So we proposed a smaller porch. if you will. And Jeff, you want to pull that up, and you can show the front elevation, yeah, there you go. So, and that is on page 5 of the planner's report, so that you can see them side by side. So that's what we proposed, a smaller version. The thought was less is more, and perhaps that's what the board would prefer. Your planners, Donna at CCH, provided a sketch of a larger, I keep calling it a porch, it's not a porch, it's a balcony, it has a roof on it, it's a balcony. So if I slip with that, it's not, the porch is below it, the balcony is above it with a roof over it. So on your page 5 of 7, there's a sketch with a larger porch, if you will, or balcony. We are fine with either one of those designs. And I know that sounds kind of odd, but that's why you go through things and you have your professionals review, and sometimes they come up with things that are better than what we perhaps came up with, and perhaps that the board would find more favorable. But we're happy to have a discussion about the two. Like we said, we're not married to either one, and we've looked into the costs of both, and they're both manageable. Even though we're increasing it, obviously would be more money to do the expanded balcony. But we're fine with both of those designs before we get into the specifics. So we'd just like some feedback from you before we start talking about those two, if you will. And I know that seems a little odd, Mr. Chairman, but there's no one else here, so fair might as well talk about it.
I don't even know where to begin, but other to say, generally we're not provided choices.
I understand. I totally agree. I totally agree. But sometimes things are better, after they've marinated for a while, and so if the board feels strongly one way or another, we're happy to have that conversation. That's why we're here.
Can I ask Donna a question? Yeah, sure. Just because I'm looking at your sketch here.
So let me clarify, it's not my sketch, it's Michael Sullivan's sketch.
Okay.
He did that on his own.
Okay, I'm just,
It just mirrors the house next door, though, the one sketch on the bottom. Is that correct?
No,
not really.
The one
Is that-
next door is actually smaller than
Yes.
this sketch. Probably about the size of the old bay windows.
Correct.
And I think it's off-centered also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only like a half width.
I think in your files, you have a picture of the old house, of the one next door.
We do have those.
Yeah, the photo exhibit.
Yeah. Yes, we absolutely have the photos. So next door is
No,
410. Do we not have 410? Are you kidding me?
Wasn't in the original
Oh, yeah.
CCA
It was in the
It was in the
original,
original
it was in your
CCA.
original
I think you're right.
packet.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's like this one?
The July.
No, it's yes, it's from the July one.
It's in your package somewhere.
Yeah, it's in there too.
Because mine is just from Google Earth, I think.
That's it, right there.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. But it's similar.
Yeah, just off, the bay window is actually off to
Yeah.
the left and the balcony is to the right, so it's not really symmetrical.
I understand, but I was just getting that it's a similar design.
And again, because so Tim, I'm assuming you're asking, why, how did we come up with that? And it's basically just what he did was he took that width under the gable, divided it into equal quadrants. Again, so you have that vertical alignment, you get the symmetry and balance as opposed to, the other thing is, on this house, there's I'm not even sure what the correct architectural term is for it, but, the columns aren't just going all the way up to the bottom of the gable. There's, like a soffit or
Yeah.
skirt. Yeah, or fascia, on the upper part, so it's not just, clear.
up to the bottom of the gable.
The point I'm trying to talk about though is a completely enclosed covered porch versus the other drawing in your report that's further up with just the one balcony part, but a larger like deck, uncovered deck that covers most of the porch. So,
We're talking here?
yes,
The top one?
yeah, the top versus the bottom.
It's actually
So I'm
covered
saying
as well.
this is their proposed design that's in their
Okay.
plans.
Okay.
What is shown
Right,
in
yeah,
the
no, I understand
association.
that.
But it is covered. It doesn't look like
Right.
it, but it is covered.
No, okay, but what I'm saying is the open part, is this open or is that all covered as well?
No, it's all open,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just curious, like what why is this the preferred design over this?
No, they're asking us to, I think, to make a choice.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
At
Mr.
least-
Smith?
Well, does the applicant have a preference?
Yeah.
Do you want- I understand that you.
Yeah, sure. Ms. Joyner,
Please.
I know you like to do one at a time.
No,
We'll make an
one
exception.
witness at a time.
Well,
Sorry.
we were done with him, right?
Well, he's gonna come back. He didn't start on
We're
this.
done with you, correct?
He didn't start
Okay,
on,
right.
so he didn't.
We're finished with him on the methodology.
On the methodology.
Right.
But they're not finished with him on the design.
We didn't start with him on the
We haven't
design.
gotten there yet.
We haven't even started with him on the
Maybe we don't
design.
need him.
We may not, and that's fine. So we didn't start with him, so, Chris, come on up.
Okay.
Mr. Joyner, you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And for the record, again, if you could just state your name and spell it for the record.
Kristen Joyner, CHRISTINJOYNER.
And Mr. Joyner, I think the question was, you were very anxious to answer, which I love. You look like a student on the first day of school. What's your preference?
My preference is whichever one is going to get approved.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thinking
this,
the
I will say, I do not envy your jobs, right? Because I know this has got to be difficult. But it's been 15 months, and so if I have to put the bigger one, or you prefer the smaller one that we started with, I'm fine either way. I think the larger one absolutely does look more symmetrical, and so that does have a flair to it, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know the right words to use. It has been a long journey, and I need a front of a house, so I'm really flexible as to what you want.
So I don't think I overstated that when I said we'll take whatever the board.
I definitely do not like how, in the proposal, it is not,
Which proposal? Our
this
proposal?
one.
Yeah,
The
that's
smaller
fine.
one.
We
The smaller
won't be
one.
insulted.
Well, I'm gonna explain why I don't like it. It's not about the design, it's about how it makes the house look almost jagged. And it doesn't tie into the historical nature of what that house was, as well as the one next door to it.
It's fine.
Sorry to insult the architect, but just it looks off in some
I
fashion.
don't think we're offended by any stretch.
I'm having trouble because it's not our job to pick a design or to give you a design
Well,
either. That's something that you present to us, and so I'm really perplexed. Personally, at this point, I think you'd be better off just putting a small Juliet balcony in.
Well, let me ask this, Mr. Chairman, could we just get a straw poll of what's preferred from the board? I mean, if the majority of the members don't have a problem, and look, I to be honest
No,
with you.
because that really gets to whether we're going to vote one way or the other.
And also, if you guys, for the design purpose, like this, I'd want to actually see a rendering of it.
We submitted it in the September submission, so we have that as part of the record.
The bigger one.
Yes, absolutely. So that's already there, and we can pull that up.
So you don't think I'm schizophrenic, right? Which one do you want? This was the design. This was the one I started with. This is where
Back to
I started. After the last meeting, we received a hand-drawn thing that said, this is gonna be more acceptable. You should go with something that looks like this. So we redid it and submitted it in September, and they said, oh my God, why do you have this bigger one? Why are you doing a bigger one? So we went back to the small, I mean, like, I'm trying to work with a lot of people to get a balcony so I can, have a cup of tea in the morning. So
Do you have the rendering or the drawing of the bigger one that you would like us to consider?
We do.
May we see
And I'm
it?
sure we're not asking for any type of legal decision on it, we're just looking for, it's chocolate vanilla, some slate chocolate, some slate vanilla, it's not a big deal.
So the larger, just so I
And I
understand,
think we like the
when
second
you're
one.
referring to the larger one, are you referring to the one that is part of the CCH drawing?
Yes,
Yeah, so,
And you did a rendering of
there it is,
that?
it's up now, if you look to your left,
Yeah, see that?
that's it.
yes.
They're doing all the work, yeah.
So we did submit that in September.
There you go, okay.
Okay. And then, can you tell me about the doors?
Yes, so Jeff will, they don't look like what they're gonna look like, but, wait, do you wanna ask if there are any witnesses?
Sorry, I forgot. I jumped.
it's okay.
My bad.
What else can you tell us, Ms. Joyner, besides, you're leaving it up to us to make a decision for you, but I'm a little bit lost in making a decision for you. This is your home. You're supposed to provide us with something that you've decided on, and we decide whether we need to modify it or reject
Okay.
it totally. So
That's it. We,
I'm
We
a little
prefer that.
lost in this.
Yeah, look.
This has been a really long journey with this application, and I'm a little lost in general with this application.
as are we, Mr. Chairman, not gonna lie to you.
My home has been broken into in the state it looks like now. And I've spent thousands of dollars trying to keep squirrels out of the house. This is my preferred one. Okay.
So can we hear about what's,
Please,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
do you need to take a minute, Ms. Joyner?
And we can have the designer speak to this, talk about the doors, do everything, if you wanna ask the public, if there's anyone who has any questions.
Why don't we take a 5-minute recess
That's
and
fine.
and let Ms. Joyner pull herself together?
That's fine.
I make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will now take roll call in order to bring this meeting back to order. Find my roll call. Okay. So we will start with Daniel Harris.
Here.
Jill Potter.
Here?
Tim Slick.
Here?
Wendy Glassman.
Here,
John Scully is absent. Russell Lewis is absent. And Chairman Avaloni.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Spadaccini, how is your client right now?
I think she's fine.
Are you all right, Ms.
Tough
Joyner?
person.
Can you proceed?
Yep.
I'm sorry that this has been such a terrible process for you. I really am. It was not our intention for it to be this at all, ever. And it's been a very unusual application in that. And I have to tell you that normally, it's a much better process. And if you've watched any other zoning board meetings, it's never been like this. So I apologize that it seems like it's been a torture event for you, but it's never been our intention. So, Mr. Spadaccini, do we have a consensus on your opinion or your applicant's
You do.
opinion? You do, okay.
Door number 2, Mr. Chairman, the wider porch, if you will. Not larger, just wider.
Okay, let's proceed from that thinking.
That's great, I appreciate it.
And before we get there, I would like Mr. Beekman to review his thinking on this application in general and where we stand since we now have basically removed a variance.
Perfect.
So let me just take a step back, just so everyone's clear. In early September, this plan was submitted. So this plan was submitted to the board prior to the hearing. So it can be part of the record. They don't have to ask, add it as an exhibit. It is part of the record. So my issue is with the application itself. Now that there's no variance on the table, The question is, and what the board has to really decide, is whether we can make a decision based upon the community design standards. Because as you know, typically under the municipal land use law, you have a variance where the Board of Adjustment hears certain variances. Typically, those variances are related to setbacks, bulk variances, what we call them the C variances, or you have D variances. There's no D variance in this application, so we don't even have to talk about that. We do have the C variances, and in this case, the board has just made the determination earlier this evening that there in fact is no C variance. The property meets the prevailing setback. So from that standpoint, you then have to look at the ordinance, and we're talking about the community design regulations under section 30-64 to determine the applicability of this property and this application before the board this evening. So in 64.2, it indicates the standards of this section shall apply to all residential historic districts now or hereafter designated and to all R1, R2, R3, and B zones as shown on the official zoning map as amended. And then we're talking, the next section we're talking about is section 3064.3, which is rehabilitation, which is what this application is. It's a rehabilitation of an existing structure. And in that section, it indicates no porch or other architectural features such as cornices, columns, dormer windows, railings, doors, etc. required under this section and present on an existing building in a historic district on the effective date of this section shall be removed unless it is replaced with the same. If element is architecturally accurate or replaced with construction to be in character with the building and historic district in which it is located and is replaced in accordance with the standards set forth herein. The architectural elements to be included will be based upon the building style and structures of similar use already existing within the block fronts on either side of the street within which the site of the proposed construction is located. Existing historic buildings shall retain their distinguishing features as part of any renovation or building additions. So those are the applicable sections in the ordinance that this board is making their determination on this evening. And you have to determine whether, in fact, what's going to be presented complies with the terms of that ordinance. And if you need me to read it again later as you're thinking about a decision, I can certainly do that.
Does everyone understand exactly what Jeff had read? Any questions in regards to that?
All right, just so we know how we're proceeding and what you're
is our role?
Intended to listen to what your role is, correct?
What our role is.
Okay.
Good?
We're good.
Okay.
Please proceed, Mr. Spadaccini.
Thank you. Jeff, why don't you just state your name again for the record? You've already been sworn in and qualified, but...
Jeffrey Stocklos from Fluent Design.
And he's already been...
He's already been sworn.
And qualified as a designer, not as an architect.
I understand.
So, Jeff, why don't you heard the standards that the board attorney discussed. Tell us what is proposed here and why it's consistent with what was there and how it's consistent with the block. I think it's more consistent than what you have up and down the block. But why don't you go into some of the detail and talk a little bit about what's being proposed there and the replacements and the like. How does that sound?
Sure. So the proposed porch on the first floor level is the same footprint, the same style, the same column spacing as before. We wanted to keep that consistent, just with better materials because the other porch was in very bad shape. And we wanted a balcony, the client wanted a balcony above that just provided enough, just came out enough, but not too far from the existing third floor projection that's on the third floor that sticks out. We didn't want it to go any further because we wanted the balcony to be covered.
And it is going back exactly where the old one was, correct? As far as depth, if you will.
Correct. We didn't want to go any further out because then it would stick out past the existing third floor. And we, per the recommendations, we centered the second floor columns on the first floor columns below, and that sort of gave us the even spacing.
And tell us a little bit, I know one of the questions in the report was the roof and the doors. Talk about those a little bit, if you will.
Correct. I think there was some question about what type of door is coming out onto the balcony. We are proposing an in-swinging sort of atrium door where it's active on one side. It's not a sliding door. It's a hinged in-swinging atrium door.
And it is difficult to see that, I mean, to really, I mean, I don't think, even if you
can actually
blow it up, I mean, it's.
You could probably see it better in plan.
Okay.
You can see that it's active on this side, swinging into the bedroom, and this would be an active panel.
Okay.
And it's all glass, I'm assuming, right?
Correct.
And one of the other issues that came up in the planner's memo was the roof.
Correct.
So style.
The old roof of the porch had a slight hip on it so that it ran the water off to the sides and the front. We were proposing something very similar, but instead of terminating at the house and the bay, it's now terminating at the sort of wall that's creating the balcony.
And one of the features that you're retaining is that window to the upper right, correct?
Correct. This is an existing window.
How are you collecting the water that's cascading off the second floor?
Off of the porch roof?
Yes.
It is running off to the roof into gutters.
Okay.
That run along the front and
the
sides.
downspouts are in front?
The downspouts, in one of our earlier applications they were, but they were asked to be moved to the sides, so they're on the sides now.
So they're closest to the facade? They're not on the corner of the roof?
No,
You want
so
them on the back closest to the house.
if you look at the house, this is sort of a balcony plan. The gutters wrap around and the downspouts are closer to the corner of the house on both sides.
Do you want to go through some of the color schemes on the other sheet?
Correct.
There we go. And talk about the materials a little bit. I know you, obviously you're not using old wood or anything, but talk about that a little bit.
Correct. We're trying to keep the style similar to what it was with the scallops and the horizontal shot siding. And the color scheme that was chosen by the client is more of these colors selected here, the sort of natural linen for some of the scallops and blue siding for the horizontal siding. And the railing would be white with brown and black spindles.
Is that any specific type of material as far as the railings?
They are, I think, mostly like a vinyl composite, I believe. Yeah, the existing material was wood and it deteriorated significantly, so we wanted something that would last longer and also look very nice. So it's mostly vinyl composite material.
And what about the rest of the facade? The scallops, I believe, are vinyl, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. We have, listed on the drawings, we have actually the different colors and materials that we're using. They're all vinyl scallops, vinyl horizontal siding.
And then the rest underneath on the, other than the scallops on the facade of the house, if you will, what type of?
Isn't part of the house already got vinyl on it? It does not?
It does.
It's already been wrapped,
Correct.
at least on the sides.
That's correct.
It's just the front that hasn't been touched at this point, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So you're going to wrap around using the same color scheme that's already there. So you basically could say that. It's already been wrapped.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that's pretty much it. Certainly, he's not going anywhere. He can answer all questions that you may have.
Is that color blue in keeping with the other colors in the neighborhood?
There's no consistent color through the neighborhood, but the classic style for like a Victorian is bright colors. So it's not any particular color, it's just as long as you have bright colors over projecting gables, steep slopes, with covered porches. So that's keeping in tradition with the style of the house.
How deep is that particular second floor balcony?
It comes out about 4 feet, I believe.
Yeah, it's 4 feet.
And you can see in the side sort of elevation that it doesn't come out any further than the existing.
And how deep was the original bay window?
It was the same, it was around
So
the
it's
same
the same
depth.
footprint?
Correct. You can see that the planes of the existing bay and the third floor were at the same plane. And again, we didn't want to come out any further. We wanted the balcony to be covered by the.
I understand.
The floor drains that are proposed for the balcony,
Mhm.
do those connect also to the downspouts, or how does that all tie together?
So actually, one of the advantages of constructing this new is we designed that the downspouts run in the same direction as the ceiling joists, and then they would run down a downspout that is behind the column.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's concealed. You wouldn't see it from the street because it runs behind the backside of the column.
I thought you said it was gonna be against the house.
These are for the interior roof drains.
They're for the floor drains.
Yes,
So
so,
they are separate from the
correct,
roof gutter downspouts.
correct. Since this is not enclosed and it's an open space, if you do get any driving rain into this balcony, we do need the water to get out. So we have floor drains which go through the joists down behind the columns. But anything that's on the roof, anything that rains on the roof goes to the downspouts on the porch roof and downspouts on either side.
There's a porch ceiling,
Correct.
so those roof drains will be hidden by that porch ceiling too? Or I'm sorry, those floor drains?
Yes, that's what this section shows in red, is the drains will be in the ceiling space, so you'll never see them. It just, as soon as it gets to the end, we need to get them to grade, and they run behind the column. And we're proposing 2 roof drains just because of the size of the balcony.
Does anyone have any further questions? Board professionals? Anyone in the public have any questions? Okay. We can dismiss this.
Okay, Jeff, thank
Witness.
you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
We have, yeah,
You
you're,
need me to stay here? Do you have anything?
I don't think so. Allison, you don't need him to. So, next witness is going to be our planner to discuss the exceptions that we need. I would like to just note one other thing for the record. There are 2 existing non-conformities. We don't meet the minimum side yard setback in existing condition and the minimum lot width. So if the board were to grant this approval, we would like to formalize stuff.
In general, they are.
Yeah.
Through the zoning process. yeah.
Okay.
Through this application process.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to get that on record. Allison, do you want to state your name for the record and get sworn in?
Allison Coffin.
Ms. Coppin, you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I did.
And could you just spell your name for the record, please?
Coffin.
And could you give us just a brief overview of your credentials?
Sure,
Mr.
I'm a
Coughlin?
licensed professional planner in the state of
I know
New Jersey.
you've been here before.
Certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've done this longer than I want to.
Me too.
If the chair's happy, I'm happy.
And Allison has been accepted by this board and the planning board as well. so-
And we've seen her time and again.
I think I have a lot less to say tonight than I thought I was going to.
That's okay, you're here, I'd rather have you say something.
So I think all we have left is the design exception, right?
That's it.
And it's up to the board to decide whether or not we still need it. I think with the original application, with the narrower balcony and the 2 columns, we probably did, because that didn't quite fit with the architecture of the house. But with this design, it's much more in balance with the house. It keeps that gable up at the top, which is an existing architectural feature that now it blends with perfectly. And it does match the houses on either side, both of which have second floor balconies.
I understand, Ms. Kaufman.
So if you want to call it a design exception, I can testify to it, but I think you would also be able to say it's not needed.
I appreciate that. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Kaufman?
No.
Board professionals?
No, I think I agree.
Anyone in the public for Ms. Kaufman? We're good. Okay, so back to you, Mr. Spadaccini. Do you have a final statement to make before we deliberate?
I don't.
Well, before we do that, let's just open up for any public comments.
Yes, I keep forgetting there's nobody here, but yes, let's open it up for public comment. Is there anybody who wants to make a comment either in favor or against this application? That doesn't include you, Ms. Joyner. Okay, close public comment. So, back to you, Mr. Spadaccini. Do you want to make a final statement?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure you're happy to hear me say that, so no, I have nothing else to say. But I do appreciate the board's understanding of this application. I know it was a little different than most, so thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, so back to us. So essentially, we're just, what are we voting on? A design exception?
So you're either voting on saying that there is no design exception and the plan is approved that meets your standards, or you are voting on the fact that, well, there's three options. You're voting on the fact that there are design exceptions, but you're approving it, or you're going to vote on the fact that there are design exceptions and you're not approving.
Okay. So let's go to the board and ask each individual where they stand, and we'll take it one by one.
Okay, based on what I've heard, there are no design exceptions. So.
I agree. I don't see any that we need to make an adjustment for.
Tim?
I agree, there's no design exception required. It fits right in with the neighborhood.
Wendy?
I agree.
And I too agree.
So to be clear, what we're discussing is the application rendering that was dated November 22, 2021 with the last revision date of August 3, 2022. Is that?
I'm not sure, no, it's September.
September.
September 6th.
Jeff, what was the date on September 8th, I believe.
The plan says September 6th.
Right around there.
Okay, because I have one dated 8/3. I don't have one.
Yeah, there's
from-
one.
No, I think it was
After that.
September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted, for the record, I want to make sure we're talking about. So the one that we've been looking at, that has a fourth revision. The
Yep,
one I
see,
have
9/8.
that I'm looking at
9/8.
on my screen
Yep.
does not. Okay. So September 6th?
8th.
September 8th.
Yes.
2022 is the last revision date.
Correct.
Okay, just so we're clear for the record. So,
Is there a vote to be taken?
so I think there's a vote to be taken, the fact that you are affirming the fact that the 9/6/2022.
9/8.
98.
I'm gonna keep saying that.
It's okay.
The 9/8, the plan I have in front of me is dated 9/6, that's why I should probably just shut this off. The 9/8/2022 plan, which is the plan that was just testified to, is the plan that the board has decided that there are no design waivers and the applicant can proceed with that plan.
So I'll make a motion that there are no design waivers based on the 9/8/2022 design provided to the board.
And the applicant can proceed.
And the applicant could proceed with.
All right.
Do you need to vote on those two existing variances or no?
No, I mean,
No, those are,
No, I'm just
those are pre-existing non-conformities. The board's not going to make a determination
Okay.
about that. You're not doing anything
That's fine.
to exacerbate that or lessen those. So we're not even.
Figured I was here.
Discuss that.
Let me ask.
So I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Go ahead, Marie.
Let's do this. Daniel Harris,
Yes.
Jill Potter,
Yes.
Tim Slick,
Yes.
Wendy Glassman,
Yes.
John Scully is absent, Russell Lewis is absent, and Chairman Avalone.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Spadaccini.
I can't thank you enough in all seriousness.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's been a very long application.
Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
Good luck with your renovations.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, so we're going to have an executive session. So we need everybody to clear the room with the exception of Jeff and Marie.
You want us to move the chair since it's closed session?
Please. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Doug. Good luck with your brains.
I can leave some if anybody wants.
With executive session, when we go in, you need to stay up until we go into executive session, Antonio.
Okay, so.
I'll have to read a resolution into the order, and then you can shut down, but then we have to come back up to close the meeting, so, right?
So during the executive session, you're not recording?
You're not recording.
Stop recording now.
Stop recording, not yet.
When the resolution decision is made, then you can stop recording. We'll remind you.
Gotcha, no worries.
Yeah, I will say something.
No worries, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
All right, so I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All right, I'll read the resolution, if I can find it. Whereas state law permits the exclusion of the public in certain circumstances, and whereas the City of Asbury Park Zoning Board of Adjustment finds that such circumstances currently exist and are as follows. Pending litigation in which the City of Asbury Park Zoning Board of Adjustment is a party and matters falling within the attorney-client privilege in order to the extent that confidentiality is required. Whereas the City of Asbury Park Zoning Board of Adjustment will make public minutes of the closed session when confidentiality no longer exists. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Asbury Park Zoning Board of Adjustment that they are hereby authorized to enter into closed session to discuss pending litigation matters which are exempt from discussion in an open public meeting under the Sunshine Law, NJSA 10:4-6, etc. Do we need a vote?
Yes.
Daniel Harris?
Yes.
Jill Potter?
Yes.
Tim Slick?
Yes.
Wendy Glassman?
Yes.
John Scully absent, Russell Lewis absent, Chairman Avalone?
Yes.
Tim Slick?
Yes.
Wendy Glassman?
Yes.
John Scully absent, Russell Lewis absent, and Chairman Avalone?
Yes. All right, and I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Are we back on?
Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'll second your motion.
Marie?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. That's it?
Go home now.
Yes.
Thank you.